If it's before your first class and you're curious what a typical jiu-jitsu class structure might look like, then stick around for this video where we will go over all of the things that you should expect before you ever walk onto the mats for your first class. Generally speaking, for your first class, you will have talked to the school owner and you will be met by one of the instructors, probably the instructor that is leading the class. Now, if this isn't happening, typically you can just go up to and talk to one of the people wearing the colored belts, and they'll help sort you out. So if you've never done any kind of grappling sport before, then there are some other things that you need to keep in mind. I'll provide links at the end of the video that you could check out surrounding both hygiene and what you should be wearing on the mats. So now let's get into what you can expect as far as what a typical jiu-jitsu class structure will look like.
I believe in any lineage of jiu-jitsu program you're in, the class is going to start with some form of warm-up. That's going to include basic stretching, mobility, strength and conditioning, kind of general fitness stuff, and most of the time some kind of generalized skill that's within jiu-jitsu that'll be used as your warm-up.
These warm-ups can vary a lot in intensity and kind of what part of the warm-up they will emphasize.
Make sure you go to your warm-ups. That's something that you'll see in your jiu-jitsu classes. Make sure you go to your warm-ups. It's super important through your first handful and really through all your years of jiu-jitsu, just to keep these movements that you'll learn in your basic class for injury prevention and for basic skill. I mean, you're going to acquire movements in the 10,000s through your warm-ups. So make sure you're doing your warm-ups. You'll see some of your upper belt levels skipping warm-ups. Don't skip your warm-ups.
So the next part of a class will typically be some kind of basic technique demonstration that the professor will be demonstrating on one of the students. Usually the first round will be something that's almost an extension of a warm-up, where you're working on some gross motor or one of the more simple techniques like a basic armbar.
Yeah, and these are usually more drill style, where they're a little more intense, not as point-to-point technique based, but a little more still warming up, still kind of getting your motor going for class.
During this portion of class, you can expect to receive the vast majority of your detailed work and get an overview of the technique. After the instructor demonstrates the technique or movement set that you're supposed to be working on, you will then get either paired off for drilling or you will find your own drilling partner.
Usually when you start your drill, your technique drill session, the instructor is walking around and kind of assessing the room. Most of the time, if you're having an issue, there's probably another group having that issue, which probably means there's more than, a couple people, and that's an issue that the class is having. And usually the instructor picks up on that. As the instructor moves the techniques along, usually he's looking for a point where he kind of closes the circle. And that's usually where he'll put a stop in the technique and we'll move into the next section of class.
So after the circle closes, we'll either start over with a new technique or we will move on to live rolling.
Sometimes that live rolling session may not be complete free rolls yet. It could be working in the particular sequence that you've done that day with bumpers up. Still in a live competition manner, but you're trying to get the move you worked on that day and your partner is trying to stop the move you worked on that day.
So for the live training part of things, the instructor will often pair you off with another student, especially if this is your first time in class. And if that doesn't happen, then you will be responsible for picking your own training partner. Culturally, at most schools, whoever you were training your drills with, typically that's your first roll.
It's always kind of funny after the first roll. Obviously, your drill partner is your first roll. There's always kind of that little bit of looking around the room and everybody looking for eye contact. That's usually the kind of the way it happens. Is there's eye contact, a nod, and usually the lower belt walks over to the upper belt. That's generally the kind of the manners of the mat.
So if this is one of your first classes, it's going to be very foreign feeling when you start rolling live for the first time. And that's okay. It'll get better over time. If you're wondering what things you should be focusing on during your first rolls in jiu-jitsu, we are going to be making a video and we will link it at the end so that you can know what you should be focusing on during your first few months of training. So after the live rolling part of class, typically the class will end. Occasionally, you will do some kind of cool down. I've seen it a few times, but it's pretty uncommon. And we move right into the after class portion of things, which is the socialization with your teammates?
Usually I think that starts, it's kind of cool. I love the way kind of a jiu-jitsu open mat in classes go. Usually that starts where Andre walks over to me and Andre's like, hey man, you was hitting this today. Can I see what you were doing? And then, we start showing it, and 2 or 3 of the other guys that were finishing up come over and sit down, and they kind of see what we're showing, and then that kind of transitions into that socialization time.
That stage of socializing and reviewing techniques, you do a lot of learning in that spot. So if you have the time to sit around for a few minutes after class, it's worth your time. This is a really good time if you're very new to jiu-jitsu to be asking people for tips with things that you are struggling with on the mats or just any general questions you might have. Typically, the more experienced students are happy to help you at this stage of class. So don't be afraid to approach people and ask questions after class. If you found this helpful, drop a like and check out this video over here, and we will see you in the next video.